Αέρο.
Εντάξει, οκ. Εντάξει,
Άντρες μου νιώσε πια, πάει,
Καλό.
όχι, ασυρέ, άκυρο, τέλειωσε. Πάω και μπήκαν που μπροστά.
Και του να το βάλει...
Δεν μας το χείρις κάτω.
Είναι 4, ο πέμπτος πίσω.
Κάτι άλλο θέλετε?
Θα βγάλουμε και αυτό που κάθεται εκεί δεξιά.
Πολλά πρέπει να ανοίξει στη βία. Έχει βοηθή. Είναι βοηθή. Τούτοι που είναι μπροστά.
Yeah, it's okay with you. Don't worry, it's out of my decision. Okay. There are no people.
Okay, get the pool ready and bring them. Wait here.
Ser glad ut. Ja. Le och skratta.
And trumpet as well.
Dove non mi sentiamo?
La signora, chi è?
A te, che cosa vendete?
Saat akşam bir görüşme sonrasında yeniden Derlerle geri dönecekleri tahmin ediliyor ve bir açıklamanın yapılması da bekliyor ilerleyen dakikalarda. Bize aktarılan şu anda öyle.
Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you.
Evet, İsveç Türkler Birliği'nin ev sahipliğinde Derlerle görüşme sonrası basına verilen görüntü bu şekilde. Herhangi bir açıklama yapılmadı. Sunum beklediğimiz İngilizce Başkanı Profesör Doktor Atalay, Görüstü Başpiskoposu için
Test. We're going to have the statement. It will be sent out this afternoon. We don't have it ready now.
önemli ve şimdi birazdan açıklamak gelecek. Biz de aktarmaya çalışacağız. İlk görüşmeler yapılan ortak açıklamalar.
Most welcome to the representative of media for this short press briefing after the joint meeting of the religious leaders and the community leaders of Cyprus. My name is Peter Weiderud. I'm normally director for the Swedish Institute in Alexandria, a dialogue institute in this region. But I have been working with the religious track of the Cyprus peace process since 2009. The religious leaders of Cyprus have come a long way since the religious track of the Cyprus peace process under the auspices of the Embassy of Sweden brought them together in 2009. At that time, the religious leaders had not talked to each other, only about each other and their communities, since the conflict started in 1963. The Cyprus conflict is not a religious conflict, but religion and freedom of religion have become victims of the conflict, as many other human rights principles. And being important for the community identity, religion have sometimes been used to fuel the conflict of this island. The religious leaders of Cyprus have learned that it's very difficult to reach result in a situation of conflict if they only address their own needs and in a national context. However, when they talk together and address principles, concerns, and in line with human rights and international law, they can count on international support for their claims. And when they stand up for the needs of each other, they are able to use the political trust within their own communities to enhance the human rights agenda and contribute to peace building. Freedom of religion and belief as part of human rights includes freedom to, as well as freedom from, and freedom to choose religion, which is treating every human being with the same respect. As religion has been part of the division, the Cyprus conflict has hampered the development of a full and modern understanding of freedom of religion in both communities. The willingness today of both community leaders to meet with the religious leaders in Derler Palace gives great hope, not only for the advancement of the common agenda on freedom of religions and belief, but also how religion and dialogue of the religious leaders can better contribute to sustainable peace on the island. And that has very much been the focus of the talks here today. In the meeting, the religious leaders reiterated their principal request to have free access for worship, upkeep, renovation, and restoration of their respective religious monuments on both sides of the Green Line. They also reiterated, and it was appreciated, to have regular meetings when needed between the religious leaders and the community leaders. And I will stop there. I will also inform you that there will be a communique sent out to the media in the next few hours once we have finalized it. And I'm willing to, together with Ambassador Klaus Girov, who is assisting me in this work, to answer any possible question you might have at this point. Thank you very much.
Raise your hand.
To ask a question, please.
Any questions?
Jorgis, you want to step forward? Yeah. Come a bit closer.
Yeah, I don't have to go on. Has the discussion today entered issues of religious property on both sides and how to integrate that discussion into the negotiations in order for the religions to have access to their properties and place of worship even before a solution?
Could you just say which media you are from?
Well, it is newspaper.
Yeah.
Yes, the principle to access to all places of worship has been addressed not only today, but continuously from the religious leaders. And my reading from the meeting is that this is fully understood by the community leaders and fully shared. This is a basic principle of human rights. Then with the history of the conflict and the fact that we are talking about a lot of practical problems. Some of these issues, of course, have to take some time to solve, and it's important to find the proper mechanism to do that. Some of that has been, of course, been discussed in the meeting, but I'm not at this point able to share any details on this. But this will, some of them, I'm sure, will be announced in a relatively short time.
We have the Polish news agency.
Yes, Agnieszka Latowska, Polish press agency. I have two questions. First one is, is there a plan to have more meetings like that? And the second question is, was there any discussion about the statement of Mr. Hasikos about preferring only Christian refugees in Cyprus? Thank you.
Yes, I believe that both the religious leaders and the community leaders see the need to meet on some regular basis. How often, I can't say, but the atmosphere of the meeting was very good, and I felt that the learning that took place, both from the religious leaders and the political leaders by this exchange, is very helpful. The religious leaders proposed to have an annual meeting. The response from the community leaders was, why so long? We meet when we need to meet. So I cannot be more precise than that, but I believe that this first meeting will be followed by other meetings, but when the next one is too early to say. The refugee issues and the statement you are referring to was not discussed in the meeting, but has of course been addressed by the religious leaders. The religious leaders, all of them, are with the understanding that humanity comes first in a situation of crisis. And I come from Scandinavia, so I have learned to address these issues with the help of the Danish philosopher and theologian Grundtvig, who said that first of all you are a human being, secondly you are Christian. He said that 200 years ago at a time when it was very controversial, but I think it's more valid than ever today, and that view is definitely shared by the religious leaders of Cyprus.
Yeah. Sir, from North Cyprus Dialogue TV, we believe that religious leaders shouldn't talk about the politics, but sometimes we recognize that some religious leaders talking about the political things, especially Cyprus issue. And is there any agreement about not to keeping this today? Was it another topic about today's meeting?
The religious leaders have, of course, discussed the interplay between religion and politics at every meeting they have had since I started to meet with them in 2009. And my reading is that they have a very mature understanding of this. It can be summarized in the fact that it's of course not the role for religious leaders to be politicians, to talk politics, but it is definitely necessary for religious leaders to address fundamental issues of rights and concern. So say, not to do politics, but rather to make politics possible by addressing some issues. I think there is also an awareness that religion in this conflict have sometimes played a role that has fueled the conflict. And that is a learning process that goes back to all leaders, and in particular religious leaders, to make sure that this is avoided in the future.
Okay, one last question from Amelia.
Hi, from the Cyprus News Agency. Has there been anything practical decided during this meeting? Since it's the first meeting of the community leaders with religious leaders, isn't there something to announce to the people so that we have something tangible? And second question, what are the practical problems that are being faced by to open track-free access? Thank you.
This has been the first meeting in the history of Cyprus, I think, in this setting, between the religious leaders and the political leaders. We cannot expect to come out with a lot of details that has been decided. That would be unfair and unwise. This is a meeting of sharing perspectives and offering a common understanding, and also hope for a future of Cyprus and hope for a solution. I think this they all agree upon. So there have been discussed specific issues, but they have to be announced by the religious leaders and by the political leaders in due time. Some of them might come relatively soon, others might take longer. But that is not for us as facilitators to offer. That is for the leaders themselves. The second question was? Your second question? The practical problems. Oh, yeah. as Cypriots, I should not tell you the practical problems that is facing, but it's of course as a result of the conflict and the division. There are of course a lot of practical problems involved with the places of worship. We are talking about several hundreds of places of worship and monuments where there is problem with access and limitations on both sides altogether. So it's a huge problem, and that of course has to be addressed in a proper and sustainable way.
I think also the fact that the religious leaders said that they will be committed to the peace process and they will support the political leaders.
Yeah. I think one thing I should share with you, which I didn't mention in my opening, is of course that as you might remember, the religious leaders in February last year came up together with a joint statement in support of the political process. That they have also reiterated today and offered their support, strongly support, to the two community leaders for the dedicated work that they are doing. And that is probably what is most important, as the religious leaders are of course not only representing themselves in a context like that, but also big part of the communities in Cyprus.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're not-
Thank you.
you're not-
Thank you.
Thank you.